So the way I got really excited about libraries and makerspaces was actually through a conversation with a friend of mine, Andrew Slowinski, who is really involved in library makerspaces, and also is one of the founders of DIY.org, which is a great site for kids to share projects that they've created and also find new challenges. And so I had been actually having conversations with him about makerspaces in schools, about how do we bring this really exciting empowering kind of movement into schools. And I felt that there was a challenge in articulating that the makerspaces, I think, are much more powerful when they're really interest driven, right? So it's not just about here's an assignment, now you can use a makerspace to fulfill the assignment that a teacher has created. It's more about how do we create a space where maybe in the beginning we're sort of saying here's how you get used to using these tools, but ultimately the goal is that the participant in the makerspace is creating stuff that they love, that they thought of, that somebody gave them an idea and they go, aha, I want to bring this into the world, so I'm going to go to the makerspace and do that. So how to create that kind of context, I think, is a challenge, and often schools are so full of external curricula. You have to work on this, you have to work on that, that it can be even harder in some ways to sort of clear out a space for really authentically interest-driven learning in a lot of schools, not all of them, of course. Now, when he brought up the library, something immediately clicked for me, because when you go to the library, you don't walk in and then the librarian comes up to you and says, here's the book you have to read today, get to it, and I'm going to be evaluating how well you've read this book. That's not how the library works. The way it works is you go and you say, hey, I'm interested in this, I want to know about this. Can you tell me how to connect with this interest that I have using all these great resources that you have? And that's really a closer analog to what I see as exciting about makerspaces, is that I want to create it as it's a sort of a community resource, a place for people to come in. I want to build this cool thing that I saw, I heard about it, or I have this new crazy idea. Can you help me flesh out this idea and bring something into the world that's really cool and exciting? And so that's why, to me, it's a great fit with libraries. You can just jive right in. That's what they're designed to do. You talked about kind of idiosyncratic, and that sort of like there are all these different kinds of ways to have a makerspace. It's not one size fits all. You need a 3D printer and a laser cutter, data. There's all kinds of different kinds of ways to dial into the local culture. And I was recently just giving a talk about makerspaces for a small international school in Denmark, and this is really what the message that we had and other people who were researchers there who had been looking into makerspaces were really trying to deliver, which is that for a makerspace really to be utilized in a powerful way, it has to fit into the existing culture, right? So when you're creating a makerspace, I think it's really important to spend a lot of time and find out, well, what are the teachers in this school already doing? What is it, is there somebody there that loves bikes? Are they interested in being kind of the driving force behind an area of the makerspace that focuses on fixing, hacking, developing new things for bikes, so what is already there? And the making really, especially when it comes to like the really interesting, powerful technologies, I think they're more powerful when they're augmenting an existing kind of maker culture. So really, step one, I think, is identify what exists there in terms of maker culture already. What are your kids into? What are the teachers? What is everybody there talking about, even before the word making comes up?
What's the argument for getting away from a focus on reading remediation and providing this in schools when schools have other things that seem more pressing?
That is a great, fantastic question, and I think I may spend the rest of my life trying to articulate this. So I'll give you my current crack at it. And I just want to say it's a really important question. So what I think is really powerful learning is learning by doing. And it's not that I don't think that reading and all these other things, which are kind of squeezed into the school curriculum, are important. They are. But what I think is really, really important and not so well supported by the curriculum is people bringing to the world their own projects, their own ideas. Because in the workplace that I've experienced, and I've had a lot of different jobs, this has always been a really, really important aspect, is the ability to sort of be creative and to express, to add, to think about systems in a powerful way. And when primarily what people are doing is kind of fulfilling an external agenda, then they don't know how to create their own agenda. And that's what I want to see. So these external agendas have the best of intentions. Like, I would never question sort of the values or the goals of all the effort that's spent to think about what do kids need to know. Ironically, though, it's taking up all the space that they would have to explore what it is that they care about. And so Scratch and many other projects from the Lifelong Kindergarten Group and also from the MIT Media Lab are really always focused on how do we kind of create a space where kids can take these powerful tools, these powerful ideas, but make things that are relevant and interesting to them. And so that's kind of what I think is valuable, and I want to try to create more spaces for in education, but also everywhere in life, in libraries, everywhere, because I think it's just a fundamentally important experience for children to have.
If you think back, and I know when I think back on my K-12 experience, which is a long time ago, I don't remember any of the tests I took. I remember when somebody asked me to make something, or I brought something into class that I was especially proud of. So can you speak about what it is that's sticky about these experiences? Is it audience? Is it hands-on? What is it that you think makes it make a difference in the lives of children?
So I think there are some guidelines or some points that we can make about what makes a powerful learning experience for a child. And one of the first points that I think is important to make is that it has to be connected to an interest or an experience that they themselves have had. That was what formed a lot of my own powerful experiences when I was learning, both in school and out. And that's what I've seen working with a lot of homeschooled kids, is that when something that they're doing connects to an authentic interest, it has a lot more meaning and power, and therefore it gets a lot more attention and effort put into it. So one of the projects that I helped run at Not Back to School Camp, which is a week-long summer camp for teenagers who are homeschooled that I've contributed to off and on since 2002, was a project on underwater robots. So in this project, I think it was about 6 or 7 kids who got together because they all really liked the underwater world. They were excited about it. And the idea of putting a camera in a piece of PVC, having it dive under the water and be able to send back video was just really exciting and astounding to them. And you could immediately see, even at the start of the project, they connected to it. Now, they had this freedom to choose, which is, I think, a really important factor that's often missing from schools. They didn't have to take this project. There were other options. But they chose it out of an authentic interest, and that changed the way that they invested in the project. It also changed and made more powerful the things that they learned from the project, from the act of creating this. And this really was something early in my experience, because this was about 10 years ago, that really kind of blew my mind, like how powerful this can be. And it was contrasted in my mind with some times that I remembered at school where there was a really cool project. Somebody could have told me, go and make an underwater robot, but if I didn't care about underwater robots, then that wasn't the project for me. And this is when we talk about kind of idiosyncratic learning. There needs to be ways to connect learners to their interests, to give them the freedom to choose. Now, there is a bare minimum. Everybody needs to know how to read and write, right? So I'm not going to argue that point, but I want more time in the day so that kids can move towards something that they already know they care about, because I think that they're going to learn not only more deeply about that thing, like underwater robots or whatever it is that they care about, but they're also going to pick up a lot of other things. Okay, in the course of underwater robots, we wanted to make a website about it and describe what it does. Well, okay, now we're using writing skills, but we're using them in service of something that they love, not just in service of an assignment that someone else told them that they had to do. And that distinction is really important to me, and I think that it's a key aspect of powerful learning experiences for kids, is that they're connected to their interests.
We talked about the fact that it is idiosyncratic, and I think maybe we ought to maybe draw a picture of what types of successful options you've seen because of local interests. You talked about the underwater robot. We talked about maybe bike construction and repair. I'm wondering what are the other options, and do you see any gender differences in the way this approach takes place?
Yeah, so you asked about examples of really authentic project-based learning where kids really kind of connected to their interests, and one of the greater examples that I know of is called the LilyPad Arduino. LilyPad Arduino is an electronics platform that was really designed carefully to fit into an existing textiles craft culture, right? So the people who made this microcontroller, they could have taken a different approach. They could have run into the room where people are sewing things and quilting and said, stop what you're doing. This quilting stuff, it's a waste of time. What you need to know is microcontrollers. They didn't take that approach. What they did instead was they said, let's really observe this crafting culture, this quilting culture, the culture that has existed in the United States for hundreds of years already. Let's see where it is now. Let's participate with people who are in that culture and find out what it is they're doing, and is there a place for adding on microcontrollers into the existing culture. And so the LilyPad Arduino was really designed and born out of what I see as a kind of a collaboration and a deep anthropological almost knowledge of the existing textile culture. And they brought this in there, and the projects that people have made with it are just really amazing. There are quilts with different aspects that are interactive, so you can close a circuit with your thumb and the lights will come up. It creates a whole new realm of possibility that I think is really exciting, not just from an electronic standpoint, but from a quilting standpoint. I think it's really cool to support that in interesting, powerful ways. So that is kind of a description of an approach that I think you can generalize to a lot of other situations where the person who is in the role of the teacher or the facilitator is looking at the existing community. What is it that they care about? What is it that they're working on? And then taking tools from the sort of great, awesome, huge global community of makers that are really relevant to what's going on in the room, in the school, with the teachers, with the kids, with even the parents, and then bringing them in and then saying, well, look, here's something that you might be interested in. I'm going to sort of show you how it works and give you maybe a starter project so you can kind of get your feet wet in a way that's comfortable. But really, then it's going to be up to you where you go with this. And if they really have detected and connected to a powerful interest that exists in that community already, then we see all kinds of examples of the kids running with it, of even the parents and the teachers running with it in really cool ways.
Traditionally, patchwork quilts are also memories, right? So they're
Yep.
They're fabrics that may be part of your the memories of your grandmother's dress or the blanket
Right.
you held when you were a baby. And I'm just wondering, wouldn't it be cool if there was some kind of I don't know, image or sound or something that came out when you touched a part of the quilt? So
That's such a great idea. I love it. You're making right now. That's such a cool idea. So what you need to do is that you have to figure out how you can record, like maybe a sound, or maybe you can even tell a story and record it, so then the next time maybe somebody presses the button and it sort of speaks out the story or talks about a time in your life.
It should really be like something connected to Erasma, or wouldn't it be cool if a hologram actually popped out and Grandma was there?
Oh yeah. Well, that's LilyPad 3.0 probably. We're still on 1.0, but I'd love it. So school does a lot of things really well, and when you come to school, there is an agenda of here are some important things that kids need to know, and that's important. What I really love about the library, though, is that when I go to the library, I'm setting the agenda. I'm going there because there's something that I want to know based on interests or what's going on in my life or all kinds of local idiosyncratic contexts. So in the same way, I think making is more powerful when it's driven by the interest of the learner. So I'm excited about making in schools. It can be really powerful. But if the agenda is coming from outside on what needs to be made, then I think that could be a little bit problematic. But what seems like a great fit with libraries is that the person who comes to the library brings that agenda, and I want people to bring their own agenda for what it is that they're creating using maker tools of all different kinds. And I want them to be supported in doing that, and that's really a culture that already exists in libraries. So making, to me, is a perfect fit into an already existing culture.